Hey fellow Vault Dwellers, it's Angry Turtle back with another guide, and this time we're talking about best legendary effects for armor. And here I will have for you 3 different categories. So the first one will be regular armor for a tank. Then the second category will be regular armor for a stealth build, like I'm showing you some examples, but those are not perfect. I will show you the perfect effects and I will talk a little bit about them. And yes, I want to address this one first. Unyielding is on the list of best legendary prefixes for a tank. And there is a reason for that. If you check my latest melee build video, you absolutely can be a bloodied tank with regular armor. It is doable and it's insanely powerful, so it must be on the list. Even though you may think like going low health and being tanky in the same time do not go hand by hand, but it actually does. So here are the best legendary effects for this setup. On number 1, as you can see, Overeaters, as it is definitely the most powerful universal damage reduction. You may probably notice I did not include bolstering or vanguards, and the reason for that is simple. They are unfortunately inferior compared to Overeaters. Overeaters is more powerful, more potent, so I want to give you the best options. Not all the options, like there are other valid options, they just not the best, that's why they not in here. And lastly, enemy specific, I still included in here, especially troubleshooters, but it is for like a secondary armor set if you are switching. As you know, there are enemies like the Imposter when you fight the Imposter ship squad that do ignore armor but cannot ignore troubleshooter's damage reduction. Makes you basically immune to all his attacks, even though the armor can be ignored. In the same time, when you do the daily op decryption, Overeater still works, while bolstering and vanguard do not, as during decryption daily op, enemies ignore all your damage resistance and energy resistance. They cannot ignore damage reduction. And lastly, second star, poison resist, fire resist on top, because otherwise you are using a legendary perks to get those. You can, but that takes away one of the legendary perks that you can otherwise change if you have those effects on your armor pieces. So those are really potent, especially that armor by default do not offer any poison or fire resist. Cryo resist not included because there is barely any enemies that do significant cryo damage. Like I think 0 enemies that do significant cryo damage. Some of them do a little bit of cryo damage. +1 strength, both for melee and all other builds, as there is a benefit of extra carry weight. So if you want some extra carry weight, strength is handy, but especially for melee build that increases your damage. And action point refresh speed, last spot, still very good, but since we have wide access to company T at this moment, it's not a must have. It's good, not a must have. I would prefer poison and fire resist over action point refresh speed, what used to be number 1 in the past. And lastly, last star on your armor, weapon weight reduction. This is just awesome, you can have so many weapons. But if you only care about reducing damage taken, Sentinel's effect, less damage while standing still, and Cavalier effect, less damage while sprinting, are really good. You can even mix those two, so then you are taking less damage while standing still and while sprinting. I kind of like it, especially if you pair it with Overeaters, having 2 to 3 pieces of Sentinel and Cavaliers. That makes you incredibly tanky. You can only, in that case, you can only really take damage when you are running normally, not sprinting and not standing still, but there is no reason to run normally. I found myself either sprinting or standing still, so perfect combo if you have both. So that's armor tank, regular armor. Of course, always pair it with a proper build. Now, the stealth armor pieces, whether it will be Torn, whether it will be Covert Scout armor, which is the best, What are you looking for those armor pieces when you want to be the best in stealth? I recently uploaded a video about exactly this topic, but now let's talk a little bit more. So for the stealth, for the prefix we have two options: Chameleon, number 1, the best for sneaking, and Unyielding. Or mixing one Unyielding with 4 pieces of Chameleon, what I found out is the best to maximize your stealth. The ultimate stealth setup. But either full set of Chameleon or full set of Unyielding will work great. This extra 15 to agility is helping with stealth a lot. So both options really valid. For the second star, on first spot here will be agility, as agility directly improves your ability to sneak, especially while moving. So agility really good. After that, the same as other armor. Fire resist, poison resist, still real good, as those poisonous clouds will affect you even when you are sneaking. You don't need to be directly hit by enemies, so some extra resistance, very handy as well. For the third star, harder to detect while sneaking, improve your stealth. I put in here one piece, as it was always one piece and more did not improve it anymore. I'm not sure if today, I didn't retest it, as for today, will be any improvement to having more than one of those pieces, but I'm pretty sure one is enough. So one piece of harder to detect while sneaking, and then either you can have weapon weight improve, or less damage while standing still, especially that Sentinel has been buffed in the sense that now you can crouch and it will work. In the past it was only when standing still, like stand up. Now you can be in crouch position and Sentinel will still benefit you, which is good, like combining some extra resistance with your ability to sneak. You cannot go wrong with that. So that's what I would recommend, the best effect if you want to go for a stealth build. You're looking for stealth armor for sneaking. And lastly, the power armor, the ultimate tank. There is nothing more powerful than power armor because of its inherent damage reduction, the built-in damage reduction, even before legendary effects. And as you can notice, I have a mix in here, because that's my daily driver and I was looking mainly for weapon weight reduction, but I do have 2 pieces of Overeaters, which I really like. I would prefer a full set. I have 2. So it's obviously not easy to get a perfect set. You need to prioritize what you want the most. In case of power armor, it is so tanky that 2 pieces of Overeaters already do the job for me, so I decided not to waste any more modules and attempt to get a full set of Overeaters, although I would certainly prefer a full set. So my best recommendation, and as a bonus the PvP recommendation, Overeaters for the first star, Troubleshooters optional, the secondary set, and only Troubleshooters probably. Other enemy specific in power armor, there is no other enemies than robots that can really harm you in power armor, and specifically robots that ignore armor. Only those robots can really kill you in power armor, so that's an option for a secondary set of power armor. Then the second star, again elemental resistances, strength or AP refresh, so this is not changing, this is universal across almost any setup. And for last star, my favorite weapon weight reduction, but as well, Sentinel can be handy if you want to stand still and be absolutely immune to everything. Full set of Overeaters, Sentinel does that for you. Nothing will really kill you, especially if you have elemental resistance. As that's worth to mention, both Overeaters and Sentinel are not able to reduce damage taken from poison and fire. So you really need this elemental resistance somehow from legendary perks or from armor effects, as that's the number 1 killer when you are a power armor tank, is poison and fire. And now, when we are talking about the PvP, I didn't put this option for regular armor as what I see. The current meta for very little PvPers that still exist is power armor, with assassins, so reduced damage from players. Then cryo resistance, as cryolators are very popular in PvP, and you still put legendary perks with poison resist and fire resist, so you have all elemental resistances as high as possible. And lastly, Sentinel, as you can be jetpacking in place and still benefit from Sentinel effect that makes you almost unkillable in PvP with, of course, a proper PvP build and high health. And this is everything you basically need to remember when rolling for perfect armor pieces or when considering if the armor you dropped is worth keeping for reselling at your vendor. All other effects can be used, but will not really yield high value on the market and will not be best. That's why they will not yield a high value. And that will be everything you really need to know. Do you have still any questions? Please don't hesitate to go into the comment sections and I will try to help you out. Or, eventually, alternative option, join us during Turtlecast and you can ask me live. Turtlecast every week, Friday 5 PM UK time. And that being said, thank you all for watching and see you all in the next one.